Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to Bayou Bets for a Monday, June the 5th. Apologize a little bit. We are just a smidge behind. If anyone was looking at the other file that we had created, this old man that is technologically challenged did the wrong thing. So blame Jim Derry. Zach Ewing will be back on Thursday, and then on Thursday we can blame Zach Ewing for everything. Well, we are ready to get going here. I'm Jim Derry along with Spencer the Guru Urquhart. And our headlines today shouldn't be a surprise to anyone. LSU leading Oregon State as we speak, 12-4 in the bottom of the eighth. Just got the second out. They are rolling. The LSU Tigers have played very well in this Baton Rouge regional. Hope to keep it going. We're going to talk about them shortly, and hopefully we'll be talking about a super regional. Don't want to jinx it just yet, but they are getting really close. Again, bottom of the eighth, 12-4 LSU with two outs over Oregon State, win, and they move on to host the Super Regional against either Kentucky or Indiana. 5 NCAA, it hasn't been as good for some of the other national seeds because 5 NCAA regional hosts have been eliminated thus far. And if Kentucky doesn't win tonight, it'll be 6. So Kentucky playing Indiana again. There has been some interesting baseball going on between those two teams. I don't think they like each other very much, but they have always had a big rivalry. Usually it's in basketball, not in baseball, but this weekend it's in baseball. And in game 2 of the NBA Finals, we are certainly going to talk about that interesting game last night between the Miami Heat and the Denver Nuggets, won by the Heat, a 10-point victory. Nuggets got it close towards the end, but they could not finish it off. And now, very surprisingly, I have to say, maybe not for everyone, but certainly surprising to me, I did not think the Heat would take one in Denver. I thought they might win one, but didn't think they'd win one in Denver. And now it's 1-1 going back to Miami. These 8th-seeded Heat keep surprising people. We're going to talk about that in a little moment. And a little NFL talk coming up. Jimmy Garoppolo has foot surgery. His status for 2023 is uncertain. There have been rumors flying around that if Jimmy Garoppolo cannot get ready for the season, there could be a trade made, and that involves the Saints. There's already been one swap of quarterbacks between the Raiders and Saints. Could we see a second one going the other way? That's something we'll talk about in a little bit. And then we got a little lanyap and, of course, our rants coming up in just a little bit. But, hey, if you have not subscribed to our YouTube channel, now's the time to do so. Bayou Bets YouTube channel. Everything you can want more in all of our past episodes as well. Spencer, what is up on this Monday afternoon as we watch the Tigers trying to finish it off?
Oh, yeah, Jim, it's going good. Just a lot going at the LSU, the finals, and this Winston thing, man, it's an interesting dilemma because, let's be real, like I said in my rant last week, Tom Brady's not coming back. So the Raiders, if Jimmy G does indeed end up out for 2023, they're going to make a move, and Jameis Winston would make a lot of sense. He doesn't seem like would be an amazing fit in Josh McDaniel's system, but hey, you got to take what you can get at this point. You can't be picky, and the bottom line is Winston is a lot better than most backup QBs. So to me, the Raiders are going to have to make something happen, and Winston would be an ideal choice for that. And the funny thing is, Saints didn't have to give up anything to get Derek Carr. Raiders are going to have to give up a draft pick to get Jameis Winston.
Although it wouldn't be a very big one. It would probably be like a 6th rounder or something like that. But you gave the surprise away. I never mentioned who it was, but that is the rumor going around that if Jimmy Garoppolo can't get healthy, obviously the Raiders are going to be on the lookout for a top-notch backup that's going to be a starter. And really, you could make, you can hate him or love him or whatever, but there's no question that Jameis Winston is one of the top backup quarterbacks in the NFL. There's no question about that. Jerry, no shock. Jerry's with us. We say hello to you, Jerry, because you're always with us. Everybody you bet show. All right, let's jump into LSU. We may talk about it for a few minutes and come back to it, but obviously, again, LSU currently leading. Looks like the Tigers bullpen's getting going there. 2 runners on, 2 out in the bottom of the 8th. LSU leads it 12-4. Gavin Guidry's warming up. They said earlier, Leo Van said that he probably wouldn't pitch today. Well, guess what? A lot of things change when you're trying to close out a game and get yourself to the Super Regional. The Tigers do not want to play another game after this one, I promise you. So there you go. They're trying to get this over with as soon as they can. As we told you, the regional winner will face the Kentucky-Indiana regional winner in the Super Regionals at Alec Box Stadium if the Tigers can finish this off It will be in Baton Rouge next weekend. Most likely, I don't know this for sure. I don't think they're all the same day anymore. I think there are some that are Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I think some are Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, if I'm correct. Either way, whatever it is, LSU will certainly play the one where that starts later. So I'm not sure if it would start on Saturday, on Friday or Saturday, but I know that LSU obviously would be home, and they get out of it. So they're going to the ninth now. LSU up 12-4 on Oregon State again as they try to finish it up. Spence, real quick again, because I might postpone some of this talk for when we get the final here. What has been to you maybe the most surprising and something that isn't surprising?
I'd say the thing that we know LSU could hit, right? But just the sheer amount of home runs they've hit is a little surprising to me. I didn't expect it to be this much Geauxrilla ball in this regional, but it's definitely been that. And the thing, the thing that didn't surprise me was that they were able to cruise on Friday. I know there was some like, oh, Tulane's been hot, maybe they might struggle, but actually, the Skeens thing was a surprise. So the whole Friday thing was like a little surprising that they went with Skeens, but not a surprise that they did it easily. It got that thing done easily. Out well. So yeah, it's been smooth sailing, and I mean, if they blow it, y'all can blame me for jinxing them. But I get an 8-run lead in the ninth. Not even LSU's bullpen can blow that.
Yeah, you see, you're definitely gonna blame them if it happens.
Mr. So yeah, I got to put a target on my back. LSU fans, if they blow this, it's all my fault.
You hear that, Horace Urquhart? If he's putting his own target on his back, hello, young guy, old guy. I might be older than your dad. We're gonna have to figure that out at some point.
No, you're younger.
I'm younger. Okay. Yeah. All right. Good to know. But yeah, we're both getting up there. My birthday's coming up soon. We won't say what the age is.
Jerry's birthday's coming up soon. I think next week, he said.
Yeah, Jerry said, where is it here? Jerry, his birthday's on the 14th. Somebody named Drea Derry. Her birthday's on June 12th. My wife's birthday is next Monday. So y'all are celebrating birthday months for sure. William Lopez asked, what are our thoughts on a Jameis Winston for Hunter Renfrow trade? Look.
Oh, I like that. I didn't think of that, but that would make sense.
It would make sense, but I got to be honest. I can't see that. And we're going to jump around topics here, and it's okay because we're kind of waiting on LSU to finish. But I will say, going to that, I don't know, and I get that he may be a free agent, so that would be, they might have to release him. I think it's great in theory, and if the Saints could pull that off, that would probably work for both sides. But a couple things there. I don't think the Raiders are going to be willing to make that kind of trade when they could probably get Winston for a 6th or a 7th round pick. So, that's kind of strange right there for me. I don't think that the Raiders would do that. And second of all, if you do this, then you're forced to make Jake Haener your backup quarterback, and I don't know that you're ready to do that either.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like though from the Raiders standpoint, I'd definitely do that because to me, Jameis Winston's would be a more useful asset to them than Hunter Renfrow. So to me, if I'm the Raiders, I'd do it because especially if I'm going to release Hunter Renfrow anyway, I think the reason the Saints might hesitate is exactly to your point, Jim, about that Jameis Winston's a high-end backup. So you go from, if something would happen to Carr, you go from a high-end backup in Winston to a very raw, inexperienced backup in Haener because let's be real, there's not much out there on the market. I mean, even guys like Trevor Siemian
not this time of year
have signed. I mean, like Carson Wentz, Matt Ryan, hell no, I don't want them as backup. So it's like Winston gives you an advantage, a really good insurance policy to where it's if Renfro's going to get released anyway, then just wait for him to get released.
Yeah, and here's my thing. I think that this is why I think this is all rumor and speculation. We can talk about it all we want, and it sounds like sounds great, but in the grand scheme of things, I don't see the Saints wanting to trade Jameis Winston this year. And again, for the simple reason of if something happens to Derek Carr, I mean the importance of a backup has become more and more and more important as you go through the season. And I haven't done a chart on this or anything, but think about how many teams use a backup quarterback at some point in the season. And you can go through the list. I would be willing to bet it's way more than 50%. So you've got to have a solid backup, even if it's for half of a game. Even if, Derek Carr were to get banged up and he has to come out and miss the second half or whatever. You need to have a solid backup. Look at the Rams. The Rams weren't doing very well, but when Matthew Stafford went out, they were done. So, I'm not a fan of trading your backup quarterback unless you're getting something really solid in return. And no offense to Hunter Renfrow. I just don't think that's enough to move a needle. And I certainly don't think a 5th or a 6th round draft pick, which is probably what they would get, is enough to move a needle either. So I don't see that happening.
Yeah, maybe a Renfrow and a 5th. If he get both of those, I'd probably do it.
Yeah, we'll have to see. Again, that's why they talk about these sorts of things this time of year, because there's not a whole lot to talk about. All right, the LSU Tigers are still hitting. One out, another base hit. So we're going to come back to LSU. I know a lot of you came on to hear about LSU, and we're going to talk about it before this show is over. But there's no sense of talking about it completely until it's over. 12-4 Tigers lead in the top of the ninth. They are batting with one man on and one out. So we're going to come back to this before the show's over. NBA Finals, I want to jump to this now. I'll get your take on this first, Spence. Nuggets now are minus 270. So actually, I said this before. If you like the Nuggets and you wanted to bet on them, you wait and see if they lose one of these first 2 or 3 games, because to me, it's the only way you're going to get any kind of value whatsoever. I'm not saying there's value at minus 270, but it's certainly better than, what was it? After game 1, it jumped to something absurd like
4 something.
The fours. And so you couldn't bet it then. And I think it's about right where it was before this series started. So I still don't think there's a whole lot of value. I don't think there's value in either team, to be honest. I think you kind of missed the boat. If you haven't bet on it already, there's certainly no value on minus 270. Heat at plus 220 at 1-1. I don't think that's enough value to bet on the Heat, in my opinion. I just don't. So I'd like to get your take and see what you think. Nuggets are just a 2.5 point favorite on the road for game 3 on Wednesday night.
Mm-hmm. I think there's some value at minus 270. It's definitely a lot better than it was, because I still think the Nuggets, they came within 3 last night. I still think they're going to win the series in 6. So to me, there actually is some value at minus 270. Not amazing. If it was like under minus 250, I'd go bet it right now. At minus 270, I'm like, I might bet it. I might not. It's not like but the Heat at plus 220, no value there. If you didn't bet the Heat, well, you missed the boat. You had to bet them after game 1, which I was considering, because I was like, man, they didn't play great in game 1, but they showed me enough to where I bet them to cover in game 2, and that was easy money.
Yeah,
they won outright. So.
If you like the Heat, you're better off betting them like kind of game by game and betting a money line. Really, if you pick 2 games that you think they're going to win, you're better off like getting a plus 115 twice than you are getting a plus 220. I know that doesn't sound like it makes sense, but it really does. I mean, if you do the math, you're going to bet $20 on some. I mean, we could sit here and do math lessons with you if you want, but I think you're better off picking games to pick the Heat down the stretch. That's if you like the Heat. I personally still think the Nuggets. I'm not changing my Nuggets in 5 pick. I said I thought they would win in 5 before, just because they lost this game at home. It was a weird game. I got to be honest, and I know you and I, we talked about in pre-production, disagree on this aspect of it, but look, you can go through and find sweeps and 5-game series in NBA Finals, but the NBA will do. It's the only sport where they do everything they possibly can to extend this thing as long as they can. And I thought last night, I thought the officiating in game 1 was good. I'm not going to go as far to call it great, but I thought it was good. Last night, they were, you don't go from 2 free throws to 20 or whatever it is the Heat had. Now, granted, 2 is ridiculous. You should never have 2 free throws in a game. You should have, 10, 12, 14, whatever. But to go from 2 to 20, the way they were calling it last night was completely different. At the very best, even if you don't think there's some weirdness going on, there is zero consistency when it comes to NBA officiating and in this finals and really throughout this playoffs.
Yeah, well, to me, the fact that I agree with you on the zero consistency thing. They're human beings, and so some games are going to call differently than others, which is frustrating. The same thing happens in the NFL. The NFL, it's inconsistent. I mean, you look at NFL games, how crazy the calls can be from game to game. I mean, with the Super Bowl, they at the end there, they would have normally called that and they don't, or it was they did call it, and the thing with James Bradbury where he barely touched him. I mean, it's inconsistent.
I completely disagree.
And the NBA the same way with foul calls. Some things are a foul and some things aren't, and I don't really. There's no objective here. I don't see why would the fine. I mean, yeah, they extend it maybe, but
don't say why, because the why's simple. It's everything's about money, Spencer. When it comes down to it, every single thing on this planet is about money. And I know you're young and naive, and I get you don't want to believe that, but I'm telling you right now, if they have a chance to make this go further, and they just give a little nudge, and the game is close, all you need is a little nudge. Whether they did intentionally or didn't, or it's a coincidence, or it's in the eye of the beholder, and really nothing was really that outrageous. Maybe so, but I can tell you right now for sure. There's one call last night where Jimmy Butler's foot is clearly on the end line. The official's standing right there, looking right at it, and doesn't call it. And so, I mean, you have to wonder sometimes. It just makes you wonder. Here's another question. This is a coaching decision. First of all, I do, and I think we both agree on this. The coaching, clearly Eric Spoelstra is the best coach in all of these NBA playoffs so far. I think that there's zero doubt that's why the Heat are where they are. Why didn't the Nuggets call their timeout at the end? I have a bigger question than that. I mean, I could guess I think they should have called a timeout too, but I have a bigger question. Remember when it got to 48 seconds, they had cut it to 3? To me, that was a point to where you call a timeout right there. You have a chance to put some things together. You still got 2 timeouts left. So if, even if the Heat were to score there, you still have a timeout and you can advance it. But then they don't even use their timeout to advance the ball with a chance to win the game or tie the game. I just thought that was weird at the end.
Yeah, and the thing, Jamal Murray probably shouldn't have shot that. I know he was hot at the end,
agree.
But yeah, it's just they did a little too much there. But one counterpoint about the officials thing, because I know he's young and naive, and okay, think that if you want, but guess what? LeBron James, the NBA loves LeBron James. We know this. They love the Lakers. LeBron James and the Lakers, they're gonna do whatever it takes to keep that thing going. And guess what? They got swept.
Guess what? Sometimes you can't help a team. If they suck bad enough, you can't help them. I mean, you can't go up there and manually change a scoreboard. I mean, if you're just not that good, then it is what it is. And I think if the Heat would have been as bad as they played in game 1, I don't think there would have been anything the officials could have done. But any game you watch, you can, if it's a tight game, it only takes one call. And I'm not saying there was one. I think there were multiple instances last night where you could go through. But if a team sucks bad enough, if you're losing by 13, there's nothing anybody can do to help you. So, I mean, I'm just saying. And it's been that way since I was watching when I was your age.
Rigged. It proves it's not rigged. I mean, if someone sucks,
which it could be rigged. It could be rigged if someone sucks. It could still be rigged. But what I'm saying is, there's only so much you can do. You can carry somebody on your back, but if if they fall down and not willing to cross the finish line, there's nothing you can do. Just because somebody gets swept doesn't mean they didn't try. It happens every year.
I guess the Illuminati didn't do enough to help them.
I guess. All right, let's move on. As LSU has upped their lead to 13-4, I think Oregon State is either in the middle of a pitch and change, or they did get the third out. I think they're in the middle of a pitch and change as we go on here. Horace says the NFL is totally consistent with all types of calls from game to game, just like the NBA. But in football, one call can usually have more of an impact. I don't agree with that either. I think one call in the NBA, it might not quite be as obvious, but I think one call in the NBA can have, it can have just as much of an impact. You just don't talk about it as much because a lot of times, I think we've seen this throughout these entire playoffs. A major call that could have been either way happens in the middle of the second quarter with the game teetering on the edge, and it changes everything. So that's for another show. We can talk about this. And Zoe says that they got the out, the second out. So they are in the bottom of the ninth, and the first out is not recorded. It's a base hit. So it's 13-4, bottom of the ninth, one runner on as LSU trying to close it out here in Baton Rouge. Again, we're going to go back to LSU as soon as that one becomes final. Let's jump to the Saints, and their odds haven't changed all that much, Spence. We talk about, third week of OTAs here. Derek Carr looks like he's starting to feel comfortable a little bit just from what we've read from our Saints writers. And The odds haven't changed all that much. And to be honest, I don't think they're going to change all that much until maybe August. You might see a little bit of movement. So you have plenty of time to decide if you want to watch through practice. And I think even get into training camp and see what you think, because I think the plus 3,500 may end up going down a little bit. I think the plus 120 to win the South is going to stay about the same. So I don't think there's any rush. And the win total at 9.5, I would be shocked if that goes up before the season starts. If anything, it might come down to 9.
Yeah, I think for that, because with the easy schedule, like, might have to. I don't think it'll change from the 9.5. If anything, though, I think it might go to 10, because I think more people would be taking the over, being that the NFC South is such a cakewalk, which is why I think plus 120 to win the South is good value, because Atlanta, Desmond Ridder, they're not going anywhere. Carolina, Bryce Young has a future to do well, but he's a rookie. They're not winning the division this year. And Tampa Bay is a total dump. So to me, plus 120, anything plus 100 or above for the Saints to me is value. So I'd get this now, because I think as the all season goes on, they're going to be at about even minus 110 by the time training camp and preseason rolls around.
Well, that's what you have to ask yourself when you're looking for value. And I agree on most of what you just said. I certainly agree with Tampa Bay. I don't think Atlanta is going to be that good either, although I think they'll be better. And I think Desmond Ridder will take steps, but I don't think they're a playoff team, and I don't think they'll win the NFC South.
Yeah, defense still a work in progress.
Agreed. But here's the thing. When you're looking at value, I think the Saints are going to win the division. I would certainly make the Saints the favorite to win the division. However, that being said, if you're looking for value, I think the value is actually on Carolina, because they are plus 300. So again, just because I think a team's going to win, I'm always looking for the value, and you think there's value in plus 120, which basically means, are the Saints going to win this division 50-50? Are they going to win it 50% of the time? I don't know the answer to that. I don't know that there's value enough there at plus 120. I'm not telling you not to bet it, because I can understand why someone would think that there's value there. So I'm not going to, if you think there's value there, great. Go put your money on it. I don't necessarily think it's a bad call, but I think there's more value on a Carolina. And the reason is because if you play this thing out, let's say 9 times, all right, I think, or just play it out 3 times, I think Carolina's going to win one of those 3. I don't think Tampa's going to win it any. You can play it 20 times. I don't think Tampa's going to win.
Tampa's terrible. We
I
can
think
all
they're
agree on that.
Yeah, I think they're going to be awful. Atlanta might, if you played it 20 times, they might sprinkle in a couple. But I think Carolina wins at least 1 out of 3 if you play it over the course of time. And so when I'm looking for value, that's what I'm thinking. And in this case, again, I think Carolina's the best value, even though I think the Saints are the best team, and I think the Saints will win the division. And again, I'm not going to poo-poo anyone who thinks that plus 120 is a value. It could be. Saints winning the NFC South. No, there's no surprise Jerry thinks that the Saints are going to win the NFC South. I mean, let's come on there. I mean, of course he is. He's a big fan, and fans should think that. I love when people get mad at us, Spencer, and you'll notice this as you get further along in your career. People get mad at me all the time when I say something bad about the Saints, or I pick someone other than the Saints, because you're not supporting the hometown team. No,
yeah, like last week with Tulane.
Exactly. I'm here to call it the way that I see it. I might be right, I might be wrong, but I'm not going to tell you I think the Saints are going to win if I don't think they're going to win. So I think it's about 50-50, to be honest. I think it's 50-50 the Saints win, maybe 35% Carolina wins, 14.9% Atlanta wins, and 0.1% chance Tampa wins. I'm not going to give them a complete 0. You can't ever do that because weird things happen.
Baker Mayfield is gonna find something.
Look, man, weird things happen. They just do. I don't think it's going to happen, but weird things happen. All right, LSU is still in the bottom of the 9th, so I'm going to save them for last before we get to our rant, as Gavin Guidry has entered for the Tigers. I believe the score is 13-5 with 1 out in the bottom of the 9th. I think the Oregon State Beavers have scored a run, and I know they have at least 1 on here in the bottom of the 9th. All right, Norma Hunt, the wife of the former Kansas City Chiefs owner Lamar Hunt, passed away, and she had attended all 57 Super Bowls. There are very few people on this planet. In fact, I think there was a fan that died a couple months ago. I can't remember what his name was, but he had also attended all 57 Super Bowls. So I think the number of people who have attended all 57 Super Bowls whether in a working capacity or just attending the game, it's got to be in single digits at this point, I would think. If not, it's in the low double digits. But so anyway, in honor of Norma Hunt, we have come up with a question, and you can feel free to comment if you like on it, because find this an interesting question. Other than the Saints Super Bowl, and some of you may have gone to that Super Bowl in 2010 when it happened, as they hit a batter. So now there are 2 on, and 13-5 still in the bottom 9, just 1 out. But Spencer, I'll ask you the question first. Other than the Saints Super Bowl, which Super Bowl would you have chosen to attend?
Yeah, this was a tough one because they've had a lot of good ones in my lifetime. But the one I went with was Patriots-Eagles. I believe it was 2018. And the reason I'm going with it is because, for one, it was just an offensive shootout. You know, I love it as a fantasy football enthusiast. I love when points get put up. So I was just back and forth, just toe-to-toe. And then another reason is just I'm not a Tom Brady fan. I mean, if anything, I'm trying not to be a hater, but I just get kind of tired of him. I'm definitely not as much of a Brady hater as my dad. And but anyway, the reason I'm going with it, though, is because he ends up losing. It was crazy. It just goes to show, like, everyone wants to say, oh, Brady to go. Well, in that one, he put up a GOAT-like performance and lost, which shows that it's a team sport. Everyone wants to give Brady all the credit, but the Patriots system was a big reason why he got a lot of those championships. So it was just, one is a great game, and also, you know, I was definitely rooting for the Eagles. It was their first ever Super Bowl, and to take down Brady.
Yeah, my daughter, who just tried to bust in the studio here, by the way, was a maid in the crew of Caesar that same night. They had moved the Caesar parade from Saturday to Sunday, and it just so happened to be on the same weekend of the Super Bowl. So, like, there were like so many people out there watching their phones while it was going on. Hilarious. But long ball here. No, he did not catch it.
Damn, so Patriots messing up.
That's this game, it's 13-6, and they fumbling around with the ball in the outfield. It's not over yet. Hence why we didn't want to get in too big of a discussion here on LSU and Oregon State. Bottom of the 9th, 1 out, and a lot of stuff going on. This game is not over. It is actually 13-7. The fumbling around in the outfield, they may end up calling that a inside the park home run, but that was ripped. You don't see that very often. 13-7 now. LSU leads. So my answer is pretty easy. I'm a cynic. I like to be cynical about a lot of things. So I think if I had to pick one, there are a couple different ones I may have chosen. I mean, for old people like me, one of them that sticks out in my mind is I would have liked to have been at Super Bowl 25 when Whitney Houston sung the national anthem, and then it ended up becoming such a great game between the Giants and the Bills. 2 outs now, LSU and Oregon State. Giants and Bills, great game, and then Noah Wood misses the field goal wide left. And
poor Bills.
Poor Bills. And that was just the start of them going to the Super Bowl and losing 4 in a row. So that was definitely up there on my list. But look, when you're talking about Super Bowls that I wish I would have attended, how could there be a better one for someone who's followed the Saints their entire life than to go to the Super Bowl when Atlanta blew a 28-3 lead? I mean, seriously,
28-3.
I don't think any Saints fan, if you're going to pick one, I think probably 60 to 70% of Saints fans would pick that one. I mean, just to watch the Falcons implode, that's a pretty good one. Well, they also lost another one. They lost to the Denver Broncos, but that one was kind of a shellac. And this one's for John Elway. But that wouldn't have been nearly as much fun as watching them blow a 28-3 lead.
If it had been anyone but the Patriots, I'd be 100% with you. But then having to see it with Brady, it just ruined it for me, because I was so mad at that Super Bowl to begin with. I was like, well, I can't root for either of these. I got to root for Brady or the Falcons. This is disgusting.
That's why you just bet on it, and then you just root for whoever you bet on. But the funny thing is, I bet on the Falcons in that game, and I was still rooting against it. That's how much I want the Falcons to lose. I was happy when I lost that bet. This is the funniest thing of all time. So, I mean, but, if you go through time and think about other Super Bowls, again, I'm old, so I have a lot more Super Bowls to choose from than you do. There are, there's some Super Bowls that stick out. Like, actually, one of the first Super Bowls I remember, and I can't remember the number, but it was Steelers and Cowboys, and it was like 35-31. It's like somewhere else 7 or 8, Super Bowl 7 or 8 somewhere. I was a little kid. But I remember that's like the first Super Bowl I remember. And it is now final. LSU has defeated Oregon State 13-7. They advanced to their 16th Super Regional. So we're going to jump on that in just a minute. But, how can you not pick 28-3, Spence? It is what it is. All right, let's go back to LSU before we get to our rants. So, again, we can't update slides while we're sitting here talking to you. Zach can, but we're not as good as he is. So LSU, again, 19 hits today, Spence. 13 runs on 19 hits. Committed just 1 hour. Even though they gave up 7 runs, they only gave up 8 hits. LSU advancing to the Super Regionals again for the 16th time. Well, they will face either Kentucky or Indiana. Those two teams play, I believe, at 5 or it's either 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock coming up. So you can watch that on ESPN Plus if you want. Either Kentucky or Indiana going to Baton Rouge.
5 o'clock.
Like 5 o'clock. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's like if I'm LSU, I'd probably, in a way, I think I'd rather Kentucky because they've seen Kentucky. Indiana could be kind of a wild card. I wouldn't think they'd pull an upset, but with LSU's bullpen being shaky, I'd just assume to bring on Kentucky. You get to host either way. So yeah, I think Kentucky is. They're a better team than Indiana, but when it comes to just from a matchup standpoint, I feel like that would work out a little better.
By the way, your dad's definitely older than me. I was not even 1 year old. I was only like 5 or 6 months old when the Jets beat the Colts in the Joe Namath guarantee game.
Cool, yeah.
Yeah. So Mr. Horace, you are definitely older than I. I was just a little baby when that happened. All right. When it comes to LSU, here are my thoughts. Look, you're always better served if you can win like they did in this series. They won the first 3 games. They're moving on. They forced Oregon State to go through the losers bracket. They had to use up all their pitching. And let's face it, no college team has enough pitching. It's very rare when a college team, especially not one that's seeded. We saw Florida do it. Florida came out of the losers bracket and won. But when you get put in the losers bracket and you're not a seeded team, chances are you're not going to have enough pitching to make it through and then beat the seeded team twice in a row. It's just too hard to do. So with that being said, whoever LSU plays this coming weekend, again, I'm stating the obvious, but they are so much better served to win this game in 2. Now, I know Thatcher Hurt's been pitching better lately, so that gives them a little bit of leeway, but you don't want it to get to Thatcher Hurt and to put the pressure on Hurt and Ackenhausen to win a game 3. Just go win the damn thing in 2 games and get it over with.
Yeah, for sure. I think, though, they might go to a game 3, if I'm being honest, because when they played the series with Kentucky, they only won 2 out of 3. So, which, they could do both, but if I had to predict, I think it'll go 3. And I think they'll still be okay, though, just because of the way their bats are going. I don't know if they'll be able to string together 3 really good ones, but I definitely think they'll be able to pull off a 2 of 3 to get to Omaha.
Well, we talked about Omaha a bust with this team, and that's absolutely what it is. If this team does anything but make it to Omaha, now once you get to Omaha, it's lagniappe. If you don't win the championship, I know some LSU fans or any fans of any team really are like, oh, if you don't win it all, it's a losing. So I don't buy in all that. Where this team's been, they haven't won a championship since 2009. Jay Johnson's fairly a new coach with LSU. To take this big of a leap, if you were to get to Omaha, to me, that is a Giants leap forward. Now, the thing that hurts you if you don't win it all this year, your team is obviously not going to look like this next year. It's going to be hard for this team to be as good next year. There's no question about that because you lose a Cruz. Beloso is going to be gone. You lose Skeens, obviously. So there are other players you're going to lose. So, Dugas gone. There are going to be players you lose, and LSU just kind of reload, right?
Yeah, they'll reload. Yeah,
but to me, if you can make it, at least win a game or 2 there, but I'm not saying they can't win the championship because I think they can. But you got to at least get there and win a couple games and see what happens. But they got a good bracket. They got a good opponent, whether it's Kentucky or Indiana. You got to like with where they are right now.
100%. Yeah, I think they get to Omaha. It might, like I said, it might not be quite as smooth as the regional, but I think they'll get there. They'll find a way, because even if their pitching slips up, they've just got enough sheer power to where I just don't see anyone being able to outslug them.
Well, that's definitely true. Zoe sent out a tweet that just came out. Pete Thamel, I don't know who he is. He is the college football senior writer for ESPN. Reports that Georgia is finalizing a deal to make LSU pitching coach Wes Johnson the school's new head coach. Interesting. Johnson has extensive SEC experience from his time at LSU, Mississippi State, and Arkansas as a pitching coach. So weird time to break that, as the LSU Fighting Tigers are getting ready to host a super regional, but their pitching coach, Wes Johnson, could be moving on to Georgia, who was absolutely awful. Georgia was not very good.
Yeah, they were the worst team in the SEC. The Mississippi schools were bad too, but yeah, Georgia was not. They weren't good.
All right, well, we'll make before we get to our rant. What's your prediction? You said LSU in 3 next week, so we don't even know who they're playing, but we're making our predictions. Zach will be back. Zach Ewing will be back on Thursday, and we're obviously going to be spending more time talking about this on Thursday afternoons, Bayou Bet Show. So you make sure you want to join that. And then obviously on Datitude as well on Friday morning, we'll be talking a lot about the LSU Tigers. I do not know who my guest is yet, but that will certainly be a topic that comes up. Spencer says LSU in 3, and me, without knowing who the opponent is going to be, I'm going to say LSU in a clean sweep. I think LSU sweeps them. I don't think it matters who they play. I like the way they're hitting the ball in this regional. I said before the tournament, before this regional started, that the real LSU was going to show up. You know, a lot of LSU fans were kind of poo-pooing on the Tigers and getting upset about them not pitching all that great and not hitting as well as they were hitting before. Well, I think they were just kind of laying in the weeds. I mean, no one tries to lose on purpose, but you also don't always expend all your energy either. And so I think Jay Johnson did a really good job. And look, I gave him a little crap for pitching Skeens in game 1 against Tulane, but it turned out it worked out just fine. LSU, even with the delay and having to put in Hurd in game 2, it worked out just fine. So I guess the man knows what he's doing. That's why they get paid like that, and we're here to get paid to talk about it on an internet show. All right, Spence, your rant for today is MLB teams. These teams that were supposed to be good this year, some of them are not filling the bill. You are not going to win with expensive bats if your pitching sucks. I couldn't agree more. Take it away.
Right, yeah, and one of those teams is my St. Louis Cardinals. You know, not just them, the San Diego Padres, New York Mets, Philadelphia Phillies. I mean, these teams that they spend all this money on these big bats. I mean, you can just go down the list. I mean, at the Padres, the Bogarts, Tatis, Juan Soto, and the Cardinals, Arenado, Goldschmidt, the Phillies, Schwarber, Bryce Harper, Trey Turner. I mean, you get the point. They're really talented hitters, but when you look at their pitching staffs, all struggling, don't have enough depth, don't have enough reliable arms, especially in the bullpen. These teams, I feel like, neglected their bullpens in the offseason, and now they're paying the price. It's June now, and they're all either 500 or below. The only one, I think the Mets are 500. All the others are well below 500. And yeah, well, I guess so. UVN. I mean, UVN's a Cubs fan. Yeah, y'all ain't doing much better. Cubs ain't doing much better though. But yeah, just my point here.
We were supposed to suck.
Right. Yeah. These teams have just, I feel like it's a philosophical issue. The old way, it's like, oh, we'll just build a great lineup and the pitching will come. But no, you've got to actually invest in the pitching. I mean, these small market teams are realizing that. Teams like the Diamondbacks, the Rays, the Marlins, the Pirates. I mean, the Cardinals this weekend got swept by the Pirates and are now 7 games out. But the Pirates can pitch and they have a bullpen. They don't have all the flashy bats, but they can get people out. So
they're 10th in pitching something. And I made a joke in pre-production. When's the last time the Pittsburgh Pirates were in June and were 10th in the majors in pitching? Probably mid to late 90s when they were going to the National League Championship with a bunch of, I don't even remember the people who played on that team. It's been so long. Stan Belinda was on that team. That's back when the NL Central, it wasn't even the NL Central then. It was a lot better than it is now because it's not very good right now. All right, my rant is a little bit different. Only 4 teams right now are eligible for Hard Knocks, but no one wants it. And those 4 teams, by the way, that are eligible are your New Orleans Saints, the New York Jets and Aaron Rodgers, the Washington Commanders, and the Chicago Bears. And a lot of people would say, it's easy. You would just pick. I mean, if you weren't from New Orleans, you would just pick the New York Jets because Aaron Rodgers and all the stuff that's going on there. The problem is they don't want to be on there. They don't want to be on that show. They're obviously like the Dallas Cowboys. They probably wanted to be on that show because that's who they are. But the Saints have been asked many times before to be on Hard Knocks, at least 3 times that I can remember, asked to be on Hard Knocks, and they fought their way out of it each time, and they're going to fight their way out of it again. And the reason is simple. The Saints are one of the most secretive organizations in football. In fact, I would go as far to say they're the second secretive organization in football, only second to Bill Belichick's New England Patriots. They don't want any of their secrets out. They don't want anyone seeing the inner workings of the New Orleans Saints. And even though Sean Payton's gone, by the way, Hard Knocks will never be in Denver either. Just saying, as long as he's there, because it's the same thing. But look, these teams don't want a spotlight on their team because they don't want the inner workings. It's a great idea, and it usually turns out to be a pretty good show. But don't expect to see the Hard Knocks crew here in New Orleans this coming summer because they're going to fight everything in their power. My guess is it goes to the Chicago Bears, and they can just focus on Justin Fields for 6 weeks.
Yeah, that's the thing. I got a question about it. Like, if they all try to fight it, like in the league, just be like, all right, well, we're picking somebody to do it, or can it just not going to have a show? Like, what's going to happen if they all try to get out of it?
They eventually have to pick someone. They have a contract with the NFL, and I think if they're really
someone's going to have to do it.
Basically, the way the NFL has worked is if I think the team that bitches the least usually is the one that gets it, or if a team wants it, they get it. But in this case, if the NFL would have to make a decision. I think they can force a team to do it. Is my guess.
They might force the Jets because the Jets will get way more ratings than the Saints, Bears, or Commanders.
Yeah, but I don't think they care about the ratings as much because the NFL is getting the same amount of money no matter what. So that's a tough.
Yeah, maybe they Aaron Rodgers, one of their darling children. They might be like, oh, we don't want to mess with him. We want him to do well in the season. They'll probably pick on the Commanders, the ownership. And
it's going to be one of those two. I think it's either going to be Washington or Chicago. We'll see. My guess is Chicago again because they probably wouldn't have as much of a say, and they can make a story out of it with Justin Fields. We'll see. I don't know if there's much else to make a story out of, but I don't know. We'll see. All right, Spence, thanks for filling in for Zach for the last 3 shows. Mr. Ewing's baseball trip is about to come to an end, and his, that song, Back to Life, Back to Reality, that's what Zach Ewing is about to face as his 2 weeks off about to come to an end. It's been fun, though.
Oh, yeah, I've been seeing him on Twitter. He's looking like having a blast out at all these stadiums. He went to the Busch Stadium, unfortunately, like I said, the Rant Cardinals, not what they usually are, but still a great place to go watch a game.
He got to hear the song when he went and saw the Cubs. I think that was the game the Cubs won 1-0. So cue the song. Zach Ewing's good luck for the Cubs, bad for the Cardinals. We'll see what happens when he comes back. All right, on Thursday, obviously, we'll be talking about what happened in Game 3 of the NBA Finals with Game 4 coming ahead. And, of course, we'll be leading off our show with LSU baseball as they are set to enter a super regional, either against the Kentucky Wildcats. And thank you, Eli, for responding. I think I clicked. There you go. I don't have to click the button anymore this week. Either against the Kentucky Wildcats or against the Indiana Hoosiers. I'll come out on Thursday's Bayou Bets, and then we'll be talking all about that again on Friday on Data 2. We'll be talking about LSU baseball and a little bit Saints as well. So make sure you join us. Stay with us the rest of the week. Hope you have a great week. Stay cool. The summer's here. There's nothing I can do about it. Enjoy it. I'm Jim Derry. He's Spencer Urquhart. See you later, everybody.